Hello.
Hello, Andrew. It's Rowan from Silver Tiger Media. How are you?
Hey, is it Rowan or Roland? Sorry, I just want to get that right. Rowan, pleasure to talk to you, man.
Thank you very much. It's great to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure. I know it's probably early over there, so thank you for your time.
That's my pleasure. Firstly, congratulations on the success of your career. How would you describe the journey so far? Can you sum it up quickly?
It's been one wild ride. I think that's probably the best way I could sum it up quickly for you.
Oh, fantastic. Beautifully put, too. And when did it all start for you in music? With all the respect I can muster, was the sad passing of your uncle a inspirational event or a starting point?
Absolutely, yeah. It's interesting. As a kid, you know, I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and all my older brothers and sisters were really fantastic athletes, and that was just not it was just not something that ever connected with me. So I was much more like the artist in the family. I wrote, I drew pictures, I made poems, and yeah. After my uncle passed away, a friend's father taught me, sort of right around the same time, taught me how to play a couple of songs on the piano, you know, simple little songs. And I remember taking one of those early poems that I wrote for my uncle and putting it to music as soon as I had learned those chords on the piano. And I was hooked from that moment forward. It was me at the piano for 5-6 hours a day after school until my parents told me I had to go to bed. I would just sit and write music, and that bug never left me. It was just a constant in my life, and sort of steered me into the music business, you know, at a pretty young age.
Fantastic, and thankfully that bug did never leave you. And you started playing piano around about the age of 9. How old were you when you started Left Here?
Left Here, I say that was probably I was 15, 16 years old when I started Left Here. Yeah, I don't think I had my license yet. I was probably about 15 years old.
Wow, and then came something corporate afterwards, and the release of Ready Break around 2000 really seemed to launch your career. Was your growing popularity a surprise at the time?
I think it was. I think it wasn't something we were paying. I mean, not to say we weren't paying close attention to, but I think it took a minute before we realized that it had transitioned from our friends and the kids that we knew in high school into a real fan base. There was a moment right before my senior year of high school where something corporate was about to take a break, you know, and we were sending 2 of our members off. One was going to Arizona State, which was a whole, you know, another state over, and the other was going to go to school in Pepperdine. And it seemed like the effective end of the band, and we threw one last show just to say goodbye to the guys. And on a week's notice in the middle of the summer, we had 350 people show up. And I think that was the moment that the shock sort of set in, that it was like, wow, I think this is bigger than just us playing to our friends. This has turned into something. And that, I think, was a big moment for the band, where we sort of realized we had something special, and you know, continued to book the band. Even with the guys in college, we would fly our guitar player home, and I think that was when we realized we were on to something, and went and recorded Ready Break and really kind of dug into the campaign to get signed.
Wow, and the success of Leaving Through the Window in 2002 was phenomenal. Was there a point that you remember saying, okay, this is my life?
You know, I think I said that long before it turned into a career. But certainly as we started getting on the road, I think probably more than anything, early on, doing like our first headlining run of dates, probably around 2002, our first like real headliner after having a record out. And, I think that was probably the moment where we realized, okay, this has turned into something real, and you know, we're selling shows out with 1,000 people in the crowd, but you know, it's interesting. I don't ever get complacent with that. Even to this day, I know it's my life, but I don't presume for a second that it will continue to be so unless I stay inspired and stay busy. And so I always sort of operate. I don't know if it's with a fear, but with with an urge to be constantly hunting for the next thing and making sure that I'm staying ahead of myself and staying inspired, because this is not a guarantee, this business, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely, beautifully said. And I hope you'll forgive this personal question while we're talking about fear,
No.
but your checkup on laryngitis led you to an early diagnosis of leukemia, thankfully leading to early treatment, and with Katie's help with stem cell transplant. I don't want to be melodramatic, but do you feel in any way as though music almost saved your life?
That's an interesting question. I think the transplant saved my life. I think my family and the commitment of a lot of amazing doctors and my commitment to staying positive throughout the process saved me. But there's no question that having music in my life, especially in those early days where I was really unwell and needed something to motivate me, the idea of getting back to making music, and even more so than that, the idea of getting back to promoting Everything in Transit, which was a record that I think symbolically for me represented a huge shift in my creative process, a huge shift in my maturity as a writer, and I really wanted people to hear that record badly. And so I think as a result, in my treatment and in my recovery, I was very motivated to get that record heard and play it for as many people as possible. And I think that was a big factor in my recovery. But I would also argue that music stunted some of my recovery, and I probably should have taken a break and done some soul searching and figured some things out. And it took me a lot of years to realize that. And in a large part, that's sort of how this record came to be, was taking that moment and saying, okay, music got me this far. Now you have to go do the rest of the work and get your mind as healthy as your body is. And that was, that's sort of how this record came about.
Wow. And ostensibly the production of Dear Jack was a very brave step. It was terrific that Tommy Lee got on board with the project as well. What was the main motivation to create the film?
If I'm being perfectly honest, it wasn't my motivation. I had friends who were documentary filmmakers who knew that I had been closely chronicling, not just my life in the hospital, but also the year leading up to it. And once I had kind of gotten out of the woods, one of them approached me and said, "We really believe that you telling this story and people seeing that there is hope and that there is a way to win in the face of this disease would be really powerful, and a powerful message to send to the cancer community, especially to young adults like yourself." And it made sense to me. I think I was still in a pretty fair amount of shock just over having gone through it, but I trusted them, and I turned my tapes over to them, and it was a really hard process watching that footage again, so close to the diagnosis, and the treatment was tough, but I am really proud of it now, especially with so much perspective and being 10 years out of that world and that scenario, to see the impact that it's made for other people who are dealing with illness themselves. It certainly has motivated me to keep the word out about it and make sure that people know it's available.
And I think it's only right to thank you so very much for your contributions and dedication to cancer research.
Oh. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. It's a passion for sure.
And moving on to the album itself, it's the most sensationally emotional album I've ever heard in my life. What unlocked this magnificent work?
Are we talking about the Wilderness record here?
Yes. Yep.
It's. I mean, I appreciate that. By the way, that's a very kind review. It means a lot to me.
Pleasure.
The record came from from taking a minute, which is not something I was ever really good at. As we talked about being sick, I sort of got right back to work. I made 2 more records in about 5 or 6 years following my treatment and my recovery, and I think I just hit a moment where I was feeling, one, a bit uninspired, and two, like there was something missing in my life, and I think a lot of that was due to delaying some of the harder work that had to do with my illness, which was just trying to figure out where I really stood after all that, and so I took a minute off. I was living in Los Angeles for 5 or 6 years, from about 2005 or 6 or so until about 2011. I got out of LA. I sort of moved back home close to the town where I grew up, and I just kind of dug deep and tried to get myself as mentally healthy as I could, which is something that I was not really successful at doing in my time in Los Angeles. And I started working on other projects. I started writing for other artists and looking at music, through a different lens. And I did work on a television program for a while, and I just did everything I could to rekindle my fire towards creating music first before I figured out how to sell it. And I think that was a big moment for me. And certainly, yeah, getting to a place where I think, my marriage was in a really healthy place, and we decided we were, strong enough to have a baby and bring a new life into the world. And, all that was really motivating and super inspiring. And that was really the foundation of the creative process, and the jumping off to actually, take another leap and start with a new project and make a new record.
Wow, I guess that really does explain your remarkable ability to pass on such raw emotion to listeners through your music. You can really feel it.
Yeah, thank you, man. Well, it's the kind of music I grew up listening to. I was always really inspired by sort of the more confessional singer-songwriters and guys like Neil Young and Paul Simon, and I think those types of writers always move me. So I try my best to contribute to that conversation in any way I can.
Indeed, and I personally find Rainy Girl so remarkably John Lennon-esque. I hope you'll forgive that observation.
No, I love Plastic Ono Band is one of my favorite records of all time. I'm a huge John Lennon fan, so I appreciate the comparison.
No, I think you'd adore it. I really do, to be perfectly honest. And thankfully, we have you coming to see us here in Australia, starting on the 21st of August in Brisbane. Very, very excited anticipation awaits you here.
Yeah, to be able to bring the band over there is something I've been eager to do. I love playing Australia. I've always had so much fun traveling over there, and I've loved all the people I've met over there. So it's a pretty exciting moment for all of us to get to come and play for you guys.
Wonderful. I know a highlight for me will be hearing Canyon Moon live and in person. Is there a particular track from the album you love performing yourself?
I mean, it's so funny. I'm pretty close to all of them. There's the final track on the record, a song called "Maps for the Getaway," is one that I've taken a pretty strong liking to in the live sense. Certainly, Cecilia and the Satellite, at least over here in the States, it's become a bit of an anthem. So getting to play that in the set, see people excited about it is awesome. But yeah, with a song like Canyon Moon, I get a chance to really sort of run around and kind of get myself into the crowd and sing. So that's a big one for us on this record.
Magnificent indeed. And look, I hope you'll forgive me cutting the interview short. I realise you're very pressed for time, but it's been such a pleasure to speak with you, Andrew, honestly, and thank you very much for this album and coming out to see us.
Thanks, Rowan. It's my pleasure. Thanks for taking the time out of your day.
A pleasure. All the best to Kelly and Cecilia.
All right. Thanks so much, man. Take it easy.
Travel safely, my friend. Thank you for your time.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.